But today, for today's program, there's so many interesting people in the room. What's clearly missing, and what I hope I can serve as, in the classic Jewish tradition, I want to be a nutritional yenta. You need a matchmaker here in San Diego, and that's what I'm here to talk about. But before we get started, let's do a little history, because it's very, very important. I think particularly for young people, it's very easy to admonish and look down and almost demonize the modern food system. But I think it's very important, and this is one of the things I like to do. In fact, when I talked to the grant makers today, I really talked about theories I've worked up about the gender origins of modern philanthropy and the almost kind of economic sexism that is the foundation grant system. Very honest, but what I'm trying to do is pry loose some of the reasons we behave and think the way we do. So, as much as I dig and understand people's frustration with the food system as it exists, it's very important to understand that at the end of World War II, for the first time in the history of the planet, an army came home, it did not go back to the farm. Never in the history of the world had that ever happened. Whenever somebody went to war, whenever the elite called, it was the sons of the farm who left. And you really have to get your head around that. I mean, I know we see it in movies and stuff, but the reality of when your son or sons left, when the crop was yielded by sweat of the brow and sinew, what it meant to send your son or daughter off. And that sense of do what's right, but come home. You know, come home because we love you, but come home because we need you. This doesn't work without you. So this miracle that was the end of World War II, and this wild thing happened because we left the agriculture. That was when we left this construct of society. For all its blemishes, it wasn't a magic time, but there was a sense of connectivity and a sense of place that we left. And this is really important to understand too, because this wasn't universal, but make no mistake, for a huge number of those sons, it was hallelujah. Hallelujah. I don't have to go back to that farm. You know, I don't have to deal with drought and locusts and banknotes, you know, and 7 days a week of work. You know, when you really listen to Hank Williams songs, when he sang about that, what he was singing is 6 days a week I work. On Saturday night I go and I get drunk and I either fall in love or land in jail. On Sunday morning I pray for forgiveness and then I do it over again. And I do that until I die. And we romanticize it, but that's what it was. So again, we ended the agriculture, and it almost, I mentioned this earlier, in almost biblical terms, we took the ammonium nitrate out of the leftover munitions of World War II and created modern fertilizer. And we entered into this new covenant, in effect, where we gladly turned over the production of food to science. Science was going to liberate us. This was about liberation. This was about time. This was about choice. You know, in generations prior, you had no choice. You did what your father did over and over and over again. And this notion that you could choose, you could leave, you could make up a new role for yourself was a profound moment. Interestingly enough, just a few short years later, and I know you're going to laugh when I say this, when Birdseye invented the frozen pea. And in effect, this was the same moment where for mothers, for women, suddenly you are liberated from the drudgery of cooking and preparing a meal for your family. The food system that we inaugurated in the 40s was birthed out of a giant sense of liberation. Science was going to free us from growing and cooking food, and we could explore our individual dreams. We could be what our generations before us could never dream of being. The freedom to choose your own path. It was a glorious moment, and it got away from us. But I really urge you to really ponder this. Before we go down the road of demonizing, we have to understand that it got away from us, but its origins were really bound up in something really beautiful, this notion that we could somehow sustain ourselves. Don't forget, man, this was the space age. This was Tang. This was the Jetsons. This was all of this glorious stuff. So I always want to preface that because I think it's very important to just understand